Good evening, 49er faithful. Welcome to another episode of the live 49ers Mailbag, one of my favorite shows to do. I love the interaction that happens live here in the chat with those of you that are here with the dialogue and the previously submitted questions a little bit deeper into it. So I send out that request for your 49ers Mailbag questions on Twitter from the left shoe in the morning, and I get a phenomenal number of responses. I'm very grateful to those of you that send in your questions beforehand. That gives me an opportunity to put together 10 or 12 quality questions and bounce back and forth between those questions and those that are live here in the chat. I want to say thank you to those that were here in the chat before we even got started tonight. Niners 209 Football, Sean 951 Niners, Raphael 562 Niners, Bryant Culp, E. Kim. I love the energy here. Seeing Rohan in the building now, seeing Spy Nick Danger coming in. Yes, loving the energy, loving the enthusiasm. If you get for me, send out that message, crank up the volume on this thing. Alan, Eliza coming in, Sneakerhead here on the channel. I am very excited. As always, some of these questions that I go through are going to be lightly edited to make sure that they fit on the screen. They have to fit in that little banner down below. I will read the complete question from my notes. So if you sent in a previously submitted question, I will read out the entirety of it. If you as a viewer notice the difference, that's why I had to edit it to put it up there on the screen. Absolutely appreciate those of you here already. Getting started early. We got a packed schedule, and I have a hard out here at just a few minutes past 6. So let's get cracking. We're not going to be able to get into the 90-minute show as sometimes happens. This one's going to be close to a 60-minute program. Let's get into the first one. As always, a reminder, if you are here live in the chat, please ask your 49ers questions. Put in an @Rob or @RobShoe before your question so that I know you're talking to me and not to one another within the chat. I will read out those after I've gotten into a couple of these previously submitted ones. This first one is coming in from Russ P. Russ comes in to say, I hear a lot of people making the comments that the 49ers are tied to Nate Sudfeld because of the $2 million contract. I see that contract not as an investment for 2022, but rather a thank you for 2021. What do you think? All right, Russ. The thank you to Nate, in my opinion, came in the form of his 1-week promotion to the active roster for a game at the end of last year. That provided him with a far bigger game check than he would have gotten if he remained on the practice squad for the entirety. And as we all know, these COVID rules have allowed for that flex. They allow you to promote someone from the practice squad. They get paid as though they are on the 53-man roster. They are on the 53-man roster, but then they can be flexed back down to the practice squad afterwards. So the 49ers did that with Nate. That sent a very clear thank you. I do not think that the Niners would extend a thank you in the form of a contract, even a 1-year contract, simply because of how tight they are up against the salary cap right now. They don't even have the money to sign their rookie class until they make some other coordinated move to free up cap dollars right now. So I don't believe they would give extra money to Nate Sudfeld as that thank you, although I'm sure they are grateful. And even if they weren't up against the cap, I just don't know that as a thank you, again, the contractually obligated money would be there. To me, it would be more in the form of what they did for Richard Sherman, where he didn't hit a bonus, but they went ahead and paid him that bonus anyway because he had been injured and had fought through it. They wanted to reward him in that sense. It seems to indicate to me, the contract seems to indicate to me just how much the 49ers value having an inexpensive quarterback, someone who is at the lower end of the spectrum there, but one that does know the system, as Nate Sudfeld does. Kyle Shanahan may honestly feel that he's better off with a lesser quarterback that knows his system than a more qualified, more expensive, more talented backup who has to come in and learn the verbiage and learn the play calls and learn the reads at the line of scrimmage. Nate Sudfeld has been here. Nate Sudfeld already knows all that. All right, I will be back into the chat to answer your questions in just a moment, but we are going with another previously submitted question, this time by Dan R. Dan comes in to say, I've heard conflicting answers to this question. Again, this is lightly edited. What you're reading on the screen is different. I've heard conflicting answers to this question. Without making other moves, are the Niners able to give Deebo an extension similar to A.J. Brown's with Jimmy still on the roster? If not, and they hold on to Jimmy too far into the offseason and keep delaying Deebo's extension, do you think Deebo will do the minimum to avoid injury and thus not be in ideal shape to start the season? Dan wants to make sure we get Deebo his money so that Deebo starts preparing like Deebo prepared last year and comes into camp in shape. Can they get Deebo's extension done in the format of A.J. Brown's with Jimmy still on the roster? Yes, absolutely. Yes, they can most definitely get that done. However, I will say they would need to make some move. It's not as if they could do that extension right now without a corresponding move. They do need to clear cap space. They cannot get Deebo's deal done without clearing that cap space first, but they do have options in how they clear out that cap space. They could extend or restructure an existing deal. There are several options of players they could do that with. Some of the contracts that they just got into, Trent Williams' deal could be restructured, extended, whichever you wanted to do, probably a restructure with how many years are still remaining on that. Or they could cut a player. I hate to keep mentioning the name, but there's the biggest amount of savings, and it's a deep position at edge rusher. If the 49ers wanted to cut Samson Ebukam, they would certainly clear up enough money to then get the deal done for Deebo. Remember, Deebo's first year of that contract, if the 49ers follow what they have historically done, that first year of the contract is not going to be a whole lot more than what he already got. It will be more because of the question being, hey, if this is going to follow A.J. Brown's format where there was a huge lump sum of money up front, right? That big bonus up front, that has to get prorated over the life of the deal. So you could see Deebo's first year number go up a little bit because of that average, but the 49ers would most likely try to keep that low. Let me just say, Jimmy is the cleanest way to clear a huge chunk of salary off of the 49ers books. So yes, that is the ideal way to go about it, trade or release Jimmy once he's healthy, but the 49ers have other options. Jimmy does not hamstring them specifically against Deebo's deal. They have other ways in which they could free up that cap space, but they would need to make a move happen. As far as Deebo getting into shape, I feel like he has he has unlocked something within him. And last season was evidence of that to me. I believe on his own, he is training like a monster right now. I mean, that is his offseason routine. That's not abnormal for him to be working out in Florida as he is now. I would expect that he'll be doing the same level of workouts that he would be, but showing up at the team facility, that's significantly different. I do not expect Deebo Samuel to show up and practice and play in the way that Fred Warner and George Kittle did. I suspect that he may actually hold out and want that deal in place so that, he doesn't have an unfortunate freak accident happen while at the facility. That would be my guess going into it. All right, I'm going to come in to check out the comments here, see if you have questions for me live in the chat. Rohan is upset. No 2-hour show. Hey, like Darren says here, it's going to be 60 minutes of awesomeness. That's exactly what we're here for. 60 minutes of awesome, of elite. All right, Cali born and raised, established in 87 at Rob. Here we go. How do you feel about Steve Young's recent interview about Trey? I don't know if I've heard the most recent interview about Trey. Now you've given me something that I have homework to go do. I need to figure out what was said. Cali Bourne, if you can sum up some of his takes, I last heard Steve Young when Matt Mayoko did the interview, but that was mid-season, right? That was in 2021. That was where Steve talked about how do we interpret Kyle Shanahan's actions as far as not starting Trey Lance. And I thought Steve Young did a phenomenal job of summing that up. So I'll be interested to hear this follow-up to where he has changed his mind, where he's at right now with his belief in Trey Lance. All right, I can't answer that one because I haven't seen it, but I will get back into your questions in a moment. I have one from Rohan right now coming in. coming in here. All right, so this one here. Should the 49ers sign Julio Jones to a 1-year deal? Rohan was on the program and was a phenomenal guest yesterday, had a phenomenal time with him, really enjoyed that, and now has contributed a great topic of discussion here. My take on this is I'm totally open to it. This seems like it could be a good addition to that wide receiver room. It also feels like something that could be done later in the offseason. No hurry to get it done right now. It doesn't seem like anybody's kicking down Julio Jones's door. The 49ers do have a log jam there at the 6th wide receiver spot. It seems to be a lot of bodies, some talent there, some players that you want to know more about, but nothing where you say to yourself, that guy's a lock to claim it. The first 5 feel like locks to me. The wide receivers 1 through 5, Deebo, Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings, Danny Gray, Ray McLeod. Those feel like 5 locks to me. That 6th spot, that's anybody's guess. So my suggestion, if I'm running the front office for the 49ers, let iron sharpen iron for training camp. Allow that competition to happen. Maybe you have a stud already on the roster. Maybe the cream rises to the top. If not, you saved Julio Jones from any unnecessary reps. Shanahan knows Julio Jones. He has played with him extensively before. And Julio Jones knows Shanahan's system. So the acclimation process would be faster for him coming back in. I guarantee that Shanahan could find ways to use Julio Jones early on in limited reps, even without having him in for the entirety of camp. So having Julio on that back burner allows for the 49ers to see what they have and then add depth at the wide receiver position later on if they find out they don't have a clear 6th answer for the wide receiver room. All right, looks like we got some more comments coming back in here. Again, hit me with the @Rob and @RobShoe if you've got that comment. Got to come in with Ellis10, Sneakerhead here on the channel. Just coming in with the kindness. Much appreciated. Niner by nature, 88. Deebo, that like button. All right, here we go. Carlos coming in. Carlos RSD. Rob, you should give production advice to many people. Your voice is always clear. The light is always good. The background is amazing. Carlos, thank you for that. Not a question, just a compliment. I've voluntarily given out my setup to many people. It's something I put a lot of research into when I was putting together what I have here. I am also proud of what I've put together. I'm glad that you guys enjoy it as well. Darren, I wholeheartedly agree. Rohan killed it last night. Darren, you are correct. All right, Hello Moto comes in with a question. @Rob, is Alex Mack coming back? I believe so. No news is good news to this point. There were a bunch of dates that have now passed us by that would have been prime times for the 49ers to announce, Alex Mack isn't coming back at this point. I don't understand. Right now, I wouldn't understand what the Niners were holding back the information for. You have to assume that he has decided at this point. It would be legitimately concerning if he is actually still undecided at May 17th. If that's the case, if he's still on the phone with John Lynch, like, John, I just don't know. I'm tossing and turning at night. I don't know if I want to come back. If that's the case, then you would think he's done. My assumption is the 49ers know whether he is or is not coming back at this point. And again, May 17th, I don't understand a logical reason for the 49ers to hold back that information if it was, in fact, a retirement. Therefore, my assumption is that he will be back. But it's certainly not a guarantee. George coming in. Rob, I sent in a question a little late. I'm not sure if you saw it. I asked, what's your craziest funny story about any Niners games you've been to? Craziest story. I've been to a lot. I think I'm north of 100 games at this point. I've never done the math, but my guess is I'm somewhere in the 120 games that I've attended over my lifetime. Very, very grateful for that opportunity. I have definitely seen some things. The worst is always the drunk fan. The worst is the drunk fan. So this one wasn't at Candlestick. It wasn't at Levi's. It was at Qualcomm Stadium. I think that's what the old San Diego Stadium was called, right? Qualcomm. And you know the fan. You see them, and they're drinking hard early. They're just going at it. And then the motor functions cease to cooperate. And at this point, this was a young lady. This was not a young gentleman. Typically, I would have thought this would be a young gentleman. But no, she started to imbibe a little too much, went and got herself a big batch of nachos and inhaled said nachos, fisting the chips. I mean, just, grabbing big chunks. It was not a delicate process. There were cheese and things all over the place. Well, as you might imagine, that game went on and those nachos didn't sit so well. I'll leave the final details out, but as you can imagine, what happens when you have drank too much, eat a bunch of crappy food, and then don't feel so well, let me just say, the person in front of that young lady did not enjoy their game experience. Enough of that story. Okay, I've got a couple more coming in. BK from the Bay here at Rob. Is it true or just a rumor that Drew Brees is thinking of coming out of retirement? I was listening to NFL radio on Sirius XM today, and their opinion of it was that he was clarifying something about his role as a broadcaster. Their interpretation was no, that he was not hinting he's coming out of retirement to play football, that it was more about his announcing career. HR coming in here. Rob, how should Eli Mitchell feel about the Niners drafting a running back in the third round? He should feel like he's not going to have to carry the entirety of the load. He should look back at the 2019 season where you had pretty even carries between Matt Breida, Raheem Mostert, and Tevin Coleman. That was a very balanced rushing attack. It was sustainable throughout the entire year. And Elijah Mitchell should, in my estimation, be grateful for that. I don't think he wants to start his young career being injured consistently. This could keep him just a little bit healthier down the stretch. I think it will benefit him. Crazy 49 at Rob, do you think we should re-sign Jaquiski? And if not, who do you see back there with Jimmy Ward? Right now, I've got to say that it seems most likely to be Talanoa Hufanga. George Odom is the guy I'm going to have my eyes on during the preseason, though. I really liked the flashes that I saw in highlights from what he did with the Colts last year. Started 7 or 8 games, never missed a tackle down in the box. The 49ers love a solid tackling safety. He's a hitter. He is a guy that's fired up to play. So I'm going to keep my eye on George Odom, no doubt about it. I would sign back Jaquiski Tartt. Personally, I would add to that defense. This defense on paper to me is a top 3 defense. You add back in Jaquiski Tartt, man. Sabretooth 49. Rob, Young said Trey not ready in the sense that he hasn't played enough to be ready for a quarterback starting role like Jimmy G. That's fair. I mean, I think he does need the reps in order to get ready, but he's never going to get there if we don't throw him in. I'll be interested to hear the entire context of that. Leaving at Rob Shu, what would Trey struggle with? Pre-snap reads, when to run and give up on the play, ball security in the pocket. Don't see him throwing careless picks. No, I don't see him throwing careless picks either. He does tend to be safe with the ball. I guess my fear is that maybe he struggles with aggression, right? Fred Warner talked about in practice, Trey Lance being too protective of the ball, not testing the defense. And one of the advantages in switching from Jimmy Garoppolo to Trey Lance is I want to be able to attack these defenses, specifically attack these defenses down the field. And I'm comfortable with the occasional turnover in that, right? Because if you throw the ball 55 or 60 yards and it's picked off, it's essentially a punt at that point. So I hope he is aggressive while learning the system. I hope he, while operating in the pocket, still takes those shots downfield. Niner by Nature 88. Rob, if we let Jimmy compete in camp and he starts getting dissected by Trey's greatness, he fakes an injury. Are we on the hook for $25 million? Yeah, I think so. I don't know what would happen with faking an injury. I mean, I have to think that Jimmy wouldn't want that back out there that, oh, well, he's injured again, because he's going to need a next contract if he wants to play in the NFL again, right? He needs a new team. That team can't have doubts about whether he can stay healthy or whether he was faking that. So that might actually shoot himself in the foot if he took that route. It does happen, though. Teams do tank. I mean, you watch players being intentionally rested in the NBA. It's becoming far more prevalent. We shall see. I have more faith in Jimmy than that. I have more faith in him, in his character. Alan coming in here, sneakerhead here on the channel. Rob, do you think Kittle will get more touches this year than last year? I do. I believe that Kittle will have a bit of a resurgence with Trey Lance. He's excited about the young gentleman getting in there. He's excited about getting some of those deep shots that we saw in 2020, the year that Jimmy wasn't out there. That's when Kittle, he has had some phenomenal years. Was that 2018? Anyways, he had his most impressive statistical year without Jimmy Garoppolo. I do think we get a resurgence there from Kittle. All right, getting back into the previously submitted questions. I got a bunch, and I don't want to miss any of them. This one comes in from the notorious GAV, again, lightly edited. Is there less pressure on Kyle Shanahan to win this season if Trey Lance is starting? How much pressure will Shanny be under if we have another losing season? After which the notorious GAV did apologize for his negativity. It's not negativity. It's just you're curious whether we're going to be able to pull this out, whether Trey is going to be an improvement. That's natural. We haven't seen the evidence yet. I get it, Gab. I do think there's slightly less pressure on Kyle Shanahan to win this year, but there's a lot of pressure to be very competitive, and more importantly, to show improvement in the play of Trey Lance from the start of the season to the end of the season. If Trey doesn't look like a capable quarterback at some point this year, there's going to be a ton of pressure coming down on both John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. They kind of need to get the quarterback position correct at this point. We are in year 6 of this regime, and they still don't have a complete answer because we haven't jettisoned Jimmy Garoppolo, and we don't know for sure, no matter how confident I may feel about Trey Lance's abilities from what I have seen, we are not certain, we don't have concrete information that it's going to turn out that way. Until Trey shines, it is going to be a question mark. If we ended up with an 8-9 season where Trey flashes some amazing things, I don't think that's going to generate too much heat. I think that's still cool seat. Kyle Shanahan can operate within that, move on to year 7. If we get a 5-12 type of a season where Trey struggles heavily, Kyle might just start to smell something cooking at that point, because then it gets dark. Then you still don't have a first-round pick next year. The future doesn't look bright anymore. I don't believe that's going to be the case, but that would be the one scenario where I see it getting a little bit hot for Shanahan. Danny coming in with the next question. Danny, why? Not Danny why, but Danny why? Who takes the biggest step up from last year's draft class? Speaking of the young gentleman out of North Dakota State, it's got to be Trey M. effing Lance, baby. It's got to be Trey. I mean, you saw what he did from weeks 5 to week 17. That was phenomenal improvement. He's going to get the biggest opportunity. And with the work that he puts in, with what I have seen in the offseason, I expect to see some major improvements. So there's the alignment between guaranteed he's getting a lot of leash to go out there and prove what he can do, and he's working at his craft right now to get to that level. At a bare minimum, I believe that Shanahan's going to be able to build, to do a better job building around Trey, building the offense specifically for Trey Lance, because he's not going to have to focus on having both Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance on the roster. Fingers crossed about that prediction, right? He's building this offense specifically for Trey. You would expect Trey to be the beneficiary of that specific system. I expect big leaps from some other guys as well. I think Aaron Banks is going to be in the running for most improved player. He's going to absolutely get a shot to claim that left guard spot that he originally played at Notre Dame. Ambry Thomas certainly shined from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And Trey Sermon, you would think with the new system, with Trey Lance operating out of the shotgun, you may see a heavier dose of Trey Sermon than you would expect, especially after having just drafted TDP. Many people may have moved Trey Sermon on down the line. He could be that third back in the balanced system. But of those, again, in my humble opinion, the most talented is Trey Lance. So I expect him to have the biggest year. All right, one more previously submitted. Then I'm back into your comments live in the chat. Keep them coming with @Rob Shoe. All right, this one comes in from Detroit. Detroit sending in the question. After the free agency and draft, are the 49ers a better or worse team than last year, assuming Lance and Deebo will be the starters in this question? I think better, potentially much, much better than last year. Defense and special teams have a chance to be next level this year. If Lance turns out to be the guy that we all hope he is, then the team is going to be a dominant force to reckon with. Let's get back to the defense. Talk about that. Minus the one safety spot where it's very uncertain at this point in time, the defense is really deep. It has an elite pass rush. 12 starting caliber NFL players on that defensive line before taking Drake Jackson in the draft with their first pick in the second round. On paper, this feels like a top 3 defense. Elite pass rush, super deep at the corner position, especially if, I got to do it, my man Jason Verrett comes out to play. We'll get another pair of his cleats if Jason Verrett balls out this year. Get JV on the program. FIVA. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the FIVA. And then special teams. Huge improvements in my book. I'm still worried about our inability to put the ball in the end zone on kickoffs. But the other half of those units, the coverage half of those units, take the kicker out of it, whether it's going to be Robbie Gould or Mitch Wishnowsky, they're both going to put the ball, that sort of pooch kick, where it may be a high flying kick, but it's caught at the 5 or the 3, and it's a chance for a run back. Now we have a much better coverage unit that should be able to actually make those tackles. Biggest additions, definitely George Odom and Oren Burks coming onto the team. Both stud special teamers. Both should add to that coverage unit. And an underrated signing or re-signing, a retaining of a player is the retaining of Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. That was key. He is a core special teamer, and he is back. I will hit on the concerns I do have about special teams, specifically relating to our return game, in a question coming up that was targeted at who will be that return specialist. All right. That was from Detroit. We got Lionel. We've got Korean 49er. We got Jay Batts. We got Carlos B. We got a lot of questions coming up, but I want to get back to your questions here in the comments. Again, hit me with the @Rob Shoe so that I know you're talking to me. Kelts Chronicles, @Rob, you are one of the best in the biz. Real talk. When was the last time you remember the 49ers having this deep of a roster? Kelts, thank you. I greatly appreciate that. I don't remember going into a season in recent memory, anytime since 2000, feeling that the roster was this deep. I recall discovering it. 2011, you had no idea how deep that roster was. And then you started to play the games. So that is my caveat here. That is my hey, let's pump the brakes. This is on paper. The depth that we all feel that we have that seems very legitimate is on paper right now. And you got to start playing the games before you know for sure that you have that depth, that you have that level of talent. And hopefully we won't actually test that depth this year. I would appreciate it if we don't have significant injuries that show us just how deep that 53-man roster is, just how deep that practice squad is. Niners last year felt a bit healthier. Only took a flyer on one previous ACL candidate in the draft, which I approved of to stash a body on the defensive line group. This is a deep team. I think you got to go back to the 90s since it was this deep. On paper. Niners 209 football. Rob, can the 49ers sign Roll Thomas to, I'm not sure which Tom. Oh, Earl Thomas, maybe, because Roll Thomas and Earl Thomas, same number of letters in Earl and Roll, and similar. Earl Thomas, I would stay away from that. Ken Martin coming in to clarify about Young's interview. Rob, Sabretooth didn't keep context. Young said exactly what you said. Lance won't be ready until he gets the reps. That makes more sense because I couldn't picture Steve Young being critical of Trey Lance. He wasn't in the previous interview. He just was matter of fact about we don't know yet. And what Kyle Shanahan has signaled to us in not playing Trey Lance is that Trey Lance simply isn't ready yet. That does not indicate that he won't be ready in the future. It doesn't indicate that he won't be phenomenal in the future. It just indicated that as of last year, Kyle Shanahan believed that Jimmy Garoppolo gave the 49ers a better chance to win than Trey Lance. And for a guy to be in the system as long as Jimmy was, even with his limitations, I think that was fair. HR coming in, Rob, when I'm not working, I'm preparing to be successful at work. That is the secret sauce. Yes, that is what Trey Lance is doing on a consistent basis. That's why I have so much faith. Giancarlo, Rob Shue, if Trey Lance is great his first year, Josh Allen good, how many wins do you think we get? I went through with the Jack and I did this schedule. I've gone through a couple of times now, the way too early schedule prediction. I landed at 11-6. That's me assuming that Trey Lance is good, but struggles early and gets better throughout the season. If, as you indicate here, Giancarlo, if Trey Lance comes in and is good right away. Now, I think we have to temper our expectations because Josh Allen wasn't actually statistically all that great in his first freaking season. That one, still, though, if you're going to say he has a good statistical season, not just average, if we're saying good, I have no problem going up to a 12-5, 13-4. The way this schedule got laid out, with how ferocious the teams are on it, the schedule itself, I don't think could have been much better. I'm really thrilled with it. And then the follow-up question, how far do we go? I will be happy with a playoff appearance. Quite honestly, at that point, to get Trey Lance into the playoffs, a chip in a chair is all I need. Brian Culp, sneakerhead here on the channel at Rob. Is this a rebuilding season? The Niners don't want to admit it. No, this team is far too deep to call it a rebuilding season, in my opinion. This is I've said this a lot, and I think it's caught on throughout the space, people talking about the Niners. The Niners, my humble opinion again, are hedging their bets a little bit. They are keeping some fuel in reserve such that if they catch fire, if, as we just talked about earlier with Giancarlo's question, if Trey Lance comes out and immediately is that guy at the start of the season, now you have some ammunition. You can make an in-season trade, try to bring in some additional talent throughout the year before the trade deadline. That's what I think they're holding back just a little bit for. Carlos coming in, Rob Shue, if Trey's a bust, Kyle and or Lynch should be fired? Yeah, maybe. I'm not firing Shanahan, but I would be more okay moving on from John. I like John Lynch. He's a great figurehead of the organization. He's a great mouthpiece. He's a phenomenal Hall of Fame ex-player. He has gravitas, and I'd be fine with Adam Peters at GM. It's not an insult to John Lynch. That's just the positivity I feel about Adam Peters. A miss on a player that you traded up 3 first-rounders to get or use 3 first-rounders to select, you may have to, a head may have to roll. Chris Royal with the super chat coming in, assuming Jimmy gets healthy, don't even let him dress for games. He might pull a muscle just putting his pads on. That's my stance in not, you cannot put Jimmy into preseason games. It's risky enough to just allow him to practice. Simply allowing him to practice has considerable risk. I think the 49ers will be cautious. Jerry Binkley, sneakerhead here on the channel, coming in with the super chat. Trey Lance is gonna be a beast. There's the positivity that I want. There is the optimism that I feel as well. Yes, he's gonna be a beast. Lee Ving at Rob Shu. Least they can give Trey is the Josh Allen plan. 2 seasons starting, hopefully 3rd season close to elite. Yes, give him time. Patience is key. Yeah, I think with that last question about bust, you cannot allow him to be a quote unquote bust after 1 season. That's too early to declare that. Allow him to grow. Give him the patience to develop. Dan coming in at Rob Shu. Who's more likely to be traded to Carolina, Jimmy or Baker? The noise seems to be Baker, but honestly, Dan, why would anyone choose Baker over Jimmy? I mean, as far as locker room chemistry, Baker does not have it going on. There have been some odd exchanges between he and wide receivers, he and running backs. I mean, the what was it, Duke Johnson, that little randomness that, you know, Baker comes in and says something about Duke's contract. You don't do that. I mean, nobody on the Niners is talking about Deebo's situation. You don't talk about another man's money. Baker did. I think that stings. I think that sticks with you. I would trade for Jimmy. Carolina seems to make more noise, maybe because of the youth of Baker. They feel like he has more potential. Jimmy is who you think he is. He is set in stone at this point a bit. HR, Rob, typically you want to avoid spicy salmon and spicy tuna at sushi. It's just older fish they're trying to mask a flavor of. That's phenomenal advice. I love to know that I should avoid spicy. I do love I'll tell you what, my favorite dish at this spot that I'm going to go to some point in the near future, because now you've just reminded me of it, was spicy tuna. Spicy tuna jalapeno poppers. Picture this. Riddle me this, Batman. A jalapeno cut in half, filled with cream cheese, then rolled in tempura batter and deep fried. Tempura fried jalapeno with cream cheese, and then very fresh spicy tuna on top of that. Do I get 1 order of those? No, I get 2 orders of those, and I take them to the Dome because they're freaking delicious. Crazy 49 at Rob. Do you see Jimmy G staying on our roster, being a $26 million backup? And to be honest, I think we should pick up a backup for Trey Lance still. I think Nate Sudfeld is the backup. Brock Purdy's going to be on the practice squad. No, I do not see a scenario where Jimmy stays at his current salary on the roster. If Jimmy's still around, which I have to acknowledge is a small percentage chance, I hope very small percentage chance, then it will be on a discounted deal. Has to be on a discounted deal. The 49ers can bluff that they will cut him. Jimmy has very few options if we get close to week 1 and nobody has a need at quarterback. I think the Niners would have some leverage there. Alan coming in. Rob, did you see the super chat by Chris Royal? I did. I got to it. I appreciate that. Sometimes when I'm scrolling through, I miss that they come in because I'm on the other page reading the question that was previously submitted. But I appreciate everybody letting me know that I had that sitting there. All right, Kim coming in. Rob, Earl Thomas was arrested recently. Ooh, yeah. I want nothing to do with Earl. Nothing to do with Earl. Darren at Rob, I've already said Richard Hightower said those kickoffs were planned. I was laughing during that whole interview. Richard Hightower, let's just say I'm glad he's on to bigger and better things. And we have a new special teams coach. Randon McMahon coming in. We will have our program tomorrow. Hey, my bearded brother, always killing it. Randon, appreciate you. Looking forward to our show tomorrow, 5 p.m. here on the channel. Niner by Nature 88, Rob. Sir Lance, the king of the NFC. Yes. All right, let's get back into a previously submitted question here. This one coming in from Lionel. I will be back into the chat in just a minute. I was only behind a couple of minutes in the comments, so I will catch up there. Again, hit me with @Rob or @RobShoe if you have a question that you're hitting live. Lionel coming in. With some new pieces added to our secondary, do you think we'll be over or under 12 interceptions this season? If I am specifically criticizing the moves that the 49ers made in adding to the defense, this is it. You hit on it, Lionel. They didn't bring in a ball hawk. I really wanted Jalen Petrie. You heard me crowing for Jalen Petrie. Move up in the draft. Take Jalen Petrie in the second round. He has a nose for the football. He's fluid. I watched him run at the combine, was super impressed. Loved his tape. I know he's kind of a hey, you got to find a role for him. When there's talent like that, you bring in the talent and you find a role for him. The 49ers, without bringing in a ball hawk, with the players they've had in previous seasons, haven't eclipsed 12 interceptions yet in the Shanahan era. They've hit 12 twice, but they have not eclipsed 12. So for that reason, I'm taking the under on this one. History would suggest that the under is the safer bet. 49ers have not added anything. Unless this elite pass rush forces more errant throws, then I would not anticipate additional interceptions above and beyond what we've seen in the past. But here's my caveat on this. Jason Verrett. FIVA. If Jason Verrett stays healthy for 14-plus games, this defense will be a top 3 unit. That's my bold prediction. Jason Verrett, healthy for 14 or more games. This is a top 3 unit, period. And it will be a top 3 unit that will generate more than 12 interceptions. Further, going into my bold prediction, assuming he's healthy for 14-plus games, Jason Verrett will be responsible for 5 of those interceptions. Bold prediction indeed. This one's on a lighter note, and I love it. Korean 49er coming in, talking about the Chicago game. On a lighter note question, which Chicago food are you most interested in eating? Chicago-style hot dog, Italian beef and sausage combo sandwich, or deep dish pizza? This is my kind of question, food-related. I'm a food guy. I know I don't look like it because I'm kind of skinny, but I love to eat. So I'll be hitting Chicago for the first game. I'm definitely planning to be out there. That's, as of right now, that's the plan. I stopped in Chicago for a night when I was out there to see Lambeau Field in January for that playoff game, and I ate a deep dish pizza then. Damn, it was tasty. It was tasty, and it was January in Chicago, so it was freaking cold. It was a perfect weather to have just deep dish, thick pizza, Lou Malnati's. It was delicious. I checked that box. I'd be willing to do it again, but now that I've done it, that can't be my top priority. And I'm a traditionalist when it comes to a good hot dog. Give me a Polish sausage from Candlestick frickin' Park, baby, with spicy brown mustard on it and just a few chopped onions sprinkled on there. And I'm a happy goddamn camper with that Polish sausage. When you start throwing tomatoes and pickles, they just don't belong on a hot dog in my book. So it's kind of a pass for me. Like, I'll try it, but it's not something I'm going to be looking forward to. So the Italian beef and sausage combo sandwich is the winner, and it sounds freaking delicious. Korean 49er, I am counting on you to fill me in on where the best spot is. Notorious GAV, sneaking in another, and I had to throw up this additional graphic that he has provided for us. I love it. He is all about juice. Oh, look at this. I gotta get my thing out of the way here so that you can see the entirety of the graphic. Nope, that's not it. That's not what I was trying to remove. This is what I'm trying to remove. My template. There we go. The 49ers way less scary 2022 schedule. All right, I'll forget to put this back up, so I'm putting that back up. All right, here's the question. Who will be the number 1 kick punt returner on the 49ers this season? Will we still see Brandon Ayuk in that role? How do you see our special teams panning out, and how much have they actually improved? P.S. Juice for captain. He wants to make the case. Juice for captain. Juice does play special teams, so Juice gets his graphic on here with the funny little sayings on there instead of the original ones. I love it. I think that the returner job is Ray McLeod's to lose. The way he potentially losing it, fumbling issues. This is my concern about the addition of Ray McLeod as our returner. I don't expect to see Brandon Ayuk back there as a returner. I think the 49ers would like him to have his breakout season as a wide receiver. I don't expect it would be Brandon Ayuk, even if Ray struggles. I believe that Brandon Ayuk will be focused on his wide receiver role this year. Other than that concern, the special teams unit should be elite. And by elite, I mean top 8, top quarter of the league for me. Totally agree with Juice for captain. I made my prediction that he gets it on a previous mailbag when asked specifically that question. And yes, I do think having him on the schedule release helps that cause. Like seeing juice in these materials that we're seeing, the 49ers put out an actual release that had juice on there. That's getting his face out there. More promo material that does help his cause. We as the fans need to be singing Juice's praises as well. Thank you for that submission, Gab. Absolutely loved it. This one comes in from Jay Batts. With the 49ers usually keeping 3 running backs, which 3 do you see them starting week 1? And do you see any being a third down back? I would actually say that I think the Niners will keep 4 backs on the 53-5 if you include juice in that. So if you lump in fullback with halfback, then I think it's going to be 5. They typically only dress 3 on game day, but typically have 4 backs on the roster, especially after the attrition that occurred last year. I see the backfield as Elijah Mitchell, Ty Davis-Price, Trey Sermon, and Jeff Wilson Jr. The player that gets bumped and lands on the practice squad, Jermichael Hasty. He was our third down back, so that does leave open the third down back role. I see the most likely fill in there as Jeff Wilson Jr. He's got good hands, as illustrated by his phenomenal catch against Arizona back in 2019, and he's certainly got the physical nature that it takes to be successful as a pass protector, blocking as a third down back. But the third down back role seems to have decreased in its importance as well. All right, one more previously submitted, then I'm back into your comments. This one coming in from Carlos B. What strategy might Anthony Ling bring in immediately on offense? Herbert made threw some bombs his rookie year, but Kyle is a run-first guy. You think that mix of offensive minds could benefit the kid, or will it make a mess? Appreciate the question, Carlos. I predict more power run schemes. Should be an ideal fit for Trey Lance, Aaron Banks, Trey Sermon, and TDP, who is a bowling ball of a man. Deebo was our biggest running back last year at 220 pounds. TDP comes in at 230, may play closer to 220, 225, but he definitely has that bulk. There are some big dogs that could benefit from more inside runs, and that is certainly a part of Anthony Lynn's game. I do believe we'll still have the traditional outside zone runs of the Kyle Shanahan offense. No question. This will more likely be the 49ers adding additional wrinkles. I do not see a complete change of the offensive system. This will be Kyle Shanahan's offensive system, Kyle Shanahan's run game, with some additional layers coming in. I don't see it as a huge shift coming. All right, only got 2 more previously submitted questions, so I'm getting back into the chat for a few minutes, and then I will close out on those. I appreciate all of you that are here and active in the chat, and I see the super chat has come in. Got to get to that. Jerry coming in, Sneakerhead here on the channel. We will have to go through Trey's first half growing pains, then the beast will be released. Yes, and the patience is going to be so critical for the 49er faithful. And I believe why it makes so much sense not to have Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster. If you have a capable backup, and Trey Lance struggles early, the crowd is going to call for whomever is back there. And that's just not a healthy situation. I don't want Trey Lance to have to go through that. I understand those that say, hey, he's a quarterback in the NFL. He's got to have a tough mind. He's got to be able to withstand criticism. I get that. But why make it even more difficult on him than you need to? That would be my stance. Looking for those at Rob Shugat to the super chat. Totally agree with the super chat. Carlos, Rob, what do you think about the O-line? It's the biggest question mark I have on the offense right now. Alex Mack, not a certainty that he comes back. I'm trending towards that. Absolutely trending towards that. And I have faith in Aaron Banks shifting back to his left guard position, a full year in the NFL weight room. I'm optimistic about that. And Brunskill was the right guard last year. So if he's still in there at right guard, I feel pretty good. McGlinchey, you got to count on him coming back in form. It's a big question mark. That's one we should all be watching in the preseason. Kelts Chronicles, spicy tuna jalapenos deep fried to the dome. Sounds hella good. Kelts, it is phenomenal. If you're ever up in Portland, we will hit up that spot. Zenbu Sushi is where it's at, down in Selwood. 49 Ways to Die coming in at Rob. Did you see Daniel Kelly saying Purdy would be better than Lance? Totally absurd if you ask me. Daniel Kelly seems to be absurd most of the time. I don't know the guy. I'm not insulting the guy, but his takes, most specifically his takes about Trey Lance seem way off to me. Could he be right? Sure. I'm willing to admit that I'm not the end all be all. And do I think he's going to be right? No, I think he's crazy. I think he's a little crazy. Alan coming in. Rob Shue, I like Sammy Womack. Have you seen the shows Jack Hammer has done on Sammy? I have not watched the film review, but I was on with Jack on his channel, and he was telling me about Womack before the show. Man, I can't wait. Can't wait to see him in real action. Much like Jack, I'm anxious to see him against NFL vets. This little get-together, right, the mini camp, all against rookies. I want to see, can he do the same? Can he impress when he's playing against NFL caliber talent? If so, let's get pumped. Crazy 49, Rob Shue, you the man, bruh. Coming from Fresno, California, bang, bang, Niner gang. Crazy 49, shout out from when I used to be out in Stockton, California. Shout out to Fresno. Leaving at Rob Shue, do you see Verrett as a starter? Yes, I do. If he is healthy and returns to form, he was the dominant cornerback in 2020. If you've got 2020 Verrett, he's the starter opposite Charvarius Ward. That would free up Emmanuel Mosley to play the slot. You could have your three best cornerbacks on the field at the same time. It's unreal. Leaving the Chicago dog disrespect. It's real. The Chicago dog disrespect is real, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. Niners 209 football at Rob Shue. Are you going to Levi Stadium week 14, December 11th? Tom Brady's coming to town against the Niners. I'm not. Levi Stadium doesn't hold as much appeal to me as all the stadiums I haven't been to yet that I want to check off on my little map. I want to finish putting those pins into the map of the U.S. and fill out all those stadiums before I die. And who knows? That could happen. According to Kyle Shanahan, that might happen before this weekend. We don't even know if we're all going to be alive by this Sunday. Ekem, Rob, I'll provide my suggestion for Italian beef and sausage sandwich when the game gets closer and we meet up in the city. I am looking forward to that. Carlos, Rob, if you need tacos recommendations in Mexico City, just let me know. Carlos, I do. I want to go to Mexico City. Are you going to be there at that game? Because I would dig that. Meeting up in another country with 49ers fans? Get the frick out of here. Get the frick out of here, I say. All right, Sean, 951 Niners coming in. Sneakerhead here on the channel coming in with the super chat. Rob, May and June is Trey months. A lot will be figured out, and I am excited to see how it's viewed. Bang, bang, Niner gang. Shooter McGavin. Shooter McGavin. LOL. Shooter. Yes, sir, Sean. Yes, sure. Yes, sir. Niners 209 football. Rob Shue coming from Oakdale, California. We got people in the Central Valley coming in. All right, getting back in. Patty Grimes, Rob, Detroit Coney or Detroit Pizza? Detroit Pizza is phenomenal. Sauce on the top, get out of here. It is deep dish pizza in a cast iron so that on the edge is the cheese is just thick layer of cheese. It gets crunchy around the exterior as it butts up against the cast iron, the hot cast iron for the deep dish. And then you layer on that rich sauce on top. Forget about it. East Glisten Pizza Lounge here in Portland does a phenomenal Detroit-style pizza. Pepperoni and mushroom is my favorite. I love that we are getting into food on this program. I love that we are getting into food on this program. The Ramelia. Hey, I got to give it to you. You handed us RL, and I give props. The Ramelia Sports Report, props, Rob. You already been to the best stadium in the NFL, SoFly Stadium. God bless. Great stream. Appreciate it, the Ramelia Sports Report. I really enjoyed the interior of SoFi. I got to say, I didn't like the exterior look of it. A little too a little too futuristic. Maybe that was, intentional. It just fit the industrial vibe of that area there. But as far as exterior, I was blown away by the Minnesota Vikings stadium. Not quite as much by SoFi. Interior, very overwhelming, but a bit of a maze as well. SoFi is nice, very nice stadium. I can't give it the best in the league, but I do give you your props for handing us a freaking L in that stadium. You earned it. All right, getting into the last previously submitted questions here. This one comes in from Nuri. Nuri says, we all talked and heard a lot about the 49ers draft picks, undrafted free agents, and who could have been the biggest impact, but it doesn't always work out, right? So who do you think could be kind of a bust from this class or just a little bit of a disappointment? I will say I'm pretty pleased with the draft class. I'm pretty pleased with the undrafted free agents and even free agency, aside from wanting the Niners to free up and use that $25 million. I'm naturally a little bit worried about TDP, Ty Davis Price. The 49ers have traded up for two other running backs, Joe Williams. That didn't turn out so well. And Trey Sermon, which is too early to be determined. But again, the early returns are not great. It felt like a reach where they selected TDP. The value did not seem to be there. He will really need to have a good rookie season for the pick to feel like it was worth it. I put this in the category of expecting a minor disappointment. If he leads the team in yards or touchdowns rushing, the pick would be totally justified, and I would readily admit that I was wrong to have my doubts in the first place. He can easily attain those things with the opportunity he will be given in this offense. D Case with the last question coming in. Who's going to be the left guard? I touched on this earlier, but I'll say it again because I have some confidence in the second-year player, Aaron Banks, back to his natural position, a year into the league, time in the NFL weight room. He is going to earn the starting role at left guard, and I'm very, very confident. All right, looking for a couple of the last questions from you guys as we wrap this thing up. I see Abraham and Starko Fan 212 coming in. I appreciate everyone that is here. If you're here, hit that like button. And yes, I apologize, Jerry. Y'all making me so hungry for pizza. I'm telling you, this was a food show. We got it weaved in. Hit that like button if you like the food conversation. Abraham coming in at Rob. Why does everyone act like the Saints don't have a new head coach and new system install? I think Niners dominate that game. These Saints are not the Saints that played with Drew. I agree with that. And it's a pretty ferocious defense as well. I have that one as a bit of a trap game. So in saying it's a trap game, my indication is the 49ers will look at it as a winnable game. I look at it as a winnable game. If they don't take it seriously, though, the Saints are the type of team that can come in and surprise you. They have enough talent on the roster to get it done, to get that W against us. And I don't want it to happen at Levi's. Got to have that home field advantage. Starko Fan 212, sneakerhead here on the channel. Rob Shue, if Deshaun Watson gets convicted, do you think the Browns will make a move for Jimmy G? I hadn't thought of that. I'm not going to speculate on whether anything with regard to Deshaun Watson's legal issues or his conviction. If there were a situation where a playoff caliber team is without their starting caliber quarterback, and in this scenario that you've laid out, I believe that's an accurate description. Yes, I think Jimmy Garoppolo becomes a name that teams will look at. So does Baker Mayfield. But obviously for the Browns, that would be a complicated solution. Yes, I think that the Browns would explore Jimmy Garoppolo. You may be looking at a Jared Goff situation where therein the 49ers would have to eat some of the salary because potentially with that huge Deshaun Watson contract, the Browns might not be able to take that entire salary on. Last Second Sports, Jesse on the channel. What's up, Jesse? At Rob Shue, do you feel the 49ers are disrespected by the national pundits? That's a tough one to say. You know, I do notice there are some national pundits that seem to be a little more disrespectful than others. In general, for being a big market team, the 49ers do get less respect than I would anticipate. Teams like the Cowboys constantly getting thrown into lists that they don't deserve to be on. Always talked about as, one of the elite teams. The 49ers less so. They have to be very clearly in that upper echelon in order to be recognized as such. But I will say that the national media gave them credit during the Harbaugh years and have also given them credit during the Shanahan era. Maybe not as much credit as they deserve. And that's got to be a West Coast bias because most of that national media is based on the East. Great question, Jesse. Appreciate it. Niners 209 football. Rob Shue. I'm from Oakdale, California. Guess what? We had the best burgers in Oakdale. It's called Backwoods Burgers. If I'm ever out there, I'm going to have one of those burgers. Bryant Culp. Great show, Rob. I thought so too. Darren Worthington. Rob, there are some pretty cool Irish pubs in downtown Chicago. Good food and a cool environment as well. You know I'm Irish. You know I want to get into those pubs. Darren, hit me up at 49ers Mailbag at gmail.com. Let me know the good ones. Roger Sellers coming in, Sneakerhead here on the channel. At Rob Shue, is there a game this season that you can see becoming a turning point for the season, whether that be good or bad? How about coming home after an East Coast trip to play the Kansas City frickin' Chiefs and get a little bit of revenge from the Super Bowl? If you win the 2 on the road back east, Trey Lance is hitting his stride, and then he lights up KC, forget about it. Leaving. Rob Shue. ESPN Niners projection is whack. I haven't seen it, but hey, the haters, the doubters, we don't have time for that. We're too positive here. We are too sure of our own opinions about the 49ers and how relevant they are going to be this season. And that is extremely relevant. Memphis, Maine. At Rob, I see us going 11-6. What say you, King? Bang, bang, Niner gang. Appreciate that, Memphis. I have the same prediction. When Jack and I went through game by game, I came out at 11-6. I'm the optimistic one. Jack came out at 13-4. 13-4. If we're 13-4, I'm going to be so happy. But I assumed that Trey Lance would struggle a bit and get better as the season went on. I believe 11-6 is highly achievable. The playoffs are within our grasp, and admit that I will be moderately disappointed if the 49ers fall short of double-digit wins or fail to reach the playoffs. I think they are entirely capable of it. This defense is going to be elite. This special teams will be improved on the coverage units. Hopefully, we have a return man as well. The offense hinges on that offensive line, continuity there, and just who is Trey Lance. I think he's the man. I think he's going to show us that. This has been a phenomenal show. One last one. The Car Gods comes in. I'm a car guy, so I got to let the Car Gods talk. He's coming in. Rob, what's your take on Purdy starting? He's the best quarterback to come out of Iowa, and him slipping under the radar in the draft. Let's go Oakdale Mustangs and the 49ers. Car Gods, I think that I would be better to answer whether he even makes the 53, and I don't think he does. I think he ends up on the practice squad, and in the future could be the backup. In the future may show us he has what it takes to start. Allen coming in. Rob Shue, Grant Cohn's father, said the Niners are sub 500, 7-10 or 8-9. Think the Niners go 12-5. I'm closer to you than I am Lowell Cohn, but I highly respect Lowell Cohn's opinion and highly respect Lowell. Manly Shavers, Rob, we always don't get the love from other broadcasters. Hey, it's good to be the underdog. Starco fan 212, Rob Shue, college finals are next week, and I need some Niner luck to help boost my anatomy grade from a B to an A. Also, when it comes to haters, I do what Taylor Swift and The Rock do and shake it off. Shake off that stress of the finals. Shake off those worries about not getting that A. Starco fan 212, you got the Niner faithful behind you. You got this. Go crush those finals. Go crush them. Luke Luna, last comment here. Luke Luna, sneakerhead here on the channel. Rob Shue, Patriots didn't give Mack a true weapon. Chicago didn't give Fields one either, really, or help the O-line. Zach Wilson should make a pretty big jump. So I'd probably say him more to reference. All right, if all that could be true, but Trey is going to have the best supporting cast. So of those players that you mentioned, taking the next step, and those that won't, as far as the Patriots not supporting Mack in a way, Chicago not building around Fields, I totally agree with the Chicago point. Yes, I think Zach Wilson could make a big jump. The Jets did a lot this offseason, but the 49ers roster is deepest I've seen in a long, long time, and that makes me excited. It's 6:05. I have a hard out. I got to get going. If you're still here, please hit that like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit the subscription. If you want to join and become a sneakerhead, you're free to do that as well. I appreciate all of you for whatever support you provide to this channel. I love the interaction. That is a genuine statement from me to you. I will be back on tomorrow with Randon McMahon between two beards at 5 p.m. on this channel. So tune in. Until then, cheers, faithful.